Hello friends, and welcome back to our Fast API tutorial. In this video we're going to actually touch on security and deal with the first steps. So first things first, before I get into too much detail, I know in the last video I was going to talk about dependencies with yield. I looked over some of the examples. It didn't really seem... So that's kind of a deeper topic, if you will. And here I'm going to rename this as we speak. Let's see, rename security first steps. That has a lot to do with databases and stuff like that. And there's not really a good way to demonstrate how it works without like spinning up a database and doing stuff like that and kind of setting up an entire app. And from an introductory perspective, it's not really necessarily worth it to go through that. I might do it in a subsequent video, but for now, we're just going to stick with this. So let's go ahead and get going with security. First thing we're going to do, we are going to declare a route. app.get items async def read items token is going to be a string, which will depend on something. Return token token. Now, on what will it depend? It will depend on an OAuth 2 scheme. So Fast API has some OAuth 2 stuff. I don't want to say built in, but there is some functionality that's built in that works very nicely that we're going to take advantage of. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up OAuth 2 scheme equals OAuth 2 password bearer, and we'll say token URL equals token. Okay, and now what that means is we need to import this from fastapi dot security import this. There. And now this will depend on OAuth 2 scheme. Okay, great. What does that tell us? What does that give us? Let's refresh the page a little bit. There we go. Try it out. Execute. Unauthorized. So what we notice, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but up here in the top right, we have this nice little authorize button that is now included because we're including the OAuth 2 scheme. Okay. Now, if we try and authorize here, which by the way, in order to use this, you need to have the multipart package installed. It's pip install python multipart, which we already have because on a previous video we've used it. But if we type user and password, this should not work. Auth not found. Okay, and the reason is because we don't have anything to check it against right now. All we have is this protected route. Okay, I'm not going to get too deep into how OAuth 2 works because that's not really the point of this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go straight in and kind of set up a user and do all that sort of stuff first. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a class user that inherits from base model. Username is going to be a string. Email is going to be a string or none, which will start as none. Full name will be a string or none, which will be none. And disabled will be a Boolean or none, which will be none. Okay. And now let's create a method to decode our token. So we'll call it fake decode token. We'll pass in the token. And we'll say return user. Username equals token. No, I'll use an F string. Token. And then fake decoded. Email equals foo@example.com. Full name equals What do we want to call this? We'll call it just foobar. Why is it freezing? Okay, foobar. Okay, so we have our decode, and now what we need to do is we need to create async def get current user. Token is a string, which depends on OAuth2 scheme. User equals fake decode token of the token, and return user. Okay. Now we're going to leave this route up here for now, but let's just do app.get users me, and we'll say async def get me current user, which is a user, equals depends on get current user. And let's just return the user. Nope, current user. So let's look at the flow of this for just a second so we understand what's going on here. Okay, so we will go back into here and refresh, and we have users me. Try it out, execute. It's not going to work because we're not authorized yet. Now, what's going to happen as we do this, we're going to try and fetch the user. Okay, we're going to call this dependency, which is this right up here. So here we need to take some sort of token and return a user, which is just this fake decoded token thing. And the token itself depends on the OAuth2 scheme. Okay, so we're going to get the token, we're going to decode it, and then we're going to return the user. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to somehow get the username and password. Like it's still not going to work because we don't have any users against which we can validate. Okay, so let's go in here and let's create a database. Fake users db equals John Doe. You know what, I'm going to use a dictionary because it's going to be faster. Username equals John Doe. Full name equals John Doe. Email equals johndoe@example.com. Hashed password equals fake hashed secret. Disabled equals false. And we'll create another one. We'll say Alice. Will be a dict. Username equals Alice. Full name equals Alice Wonderson. Email equals alice@example.com. Hashed password equals fake hashed secret 2. And disabled equals true. Okay, so we have that. Now let's create a method to hash our password first. Fake hash password. Password is a string. Return fake hashed password. So the reason we're doing this is because, you know, in our database we wouldn't actually have passwords stored in plain text anyway. We would have hashes, so we're going to have to compare hash against hash. So now let's set up another user in DB, which will inherit from user, and we're going to also add in hashed password, which is a string. So user in DB is a model that has all of these entries here, plus it also has a hashed password. Now we're going to create a method, get user DB username is a string. If username in DB user dict equals DB username, return user in DB user dict. And I'm just writing these methods out. We're going to kind of touch on these very quickly in just a few minutes. Okay. So now what we're going to do, instead of doing this, we're going to return get user fake users DB and token. So what fake decode token will do is we will call get user with our database, which we have, I'm going to minimize this, which we have set up here. And all we're doing is we're saying if the username itself is in the database, then the user dict is the database value. So we would be passing in something like Alice or John, I think it's John Doe in there to get that. Okay. And we will get the fake decode token from there. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to update get current user just a little bit. So now, user is still fake decode token, but if not user, we're going to raise an HTTP exception. Status code is going to be status.http 401 unauthorized. Detail equals invalid authentication credentials, and headers equals www authenticate bearer, and then we will return the user. Okay. And I think that's good for that. Now we got a couple more that we have to do, and there's a whole bunch of functionality that's going on in here, and we're going to see how it all ties together in just a few minutes. Get current active user. Current user is going to be a user, which depends on get current user. If current user dot disabled, I'm going to make this a D up here. Disabled. Then raise HTTP exception. Status code equals 400. Detail equals inactive user. Otherwise, we will return current user. Okay, so let's just take a look at this for a second. External tools, black. Now, so we have our users me, and I'm going to replace this with get current active user instead of get current user. So what's going to happen here is we are going to get the current active user and return that. Well, the current active user is going to depend on get current user. Well, get current user takes a token. So we're going to be passing in a token somehow into this method right here. So we take that token, we call fake decode token, which in itself calls get user, checks to see if that user is in the database. So the token is just going to be the user's name, John Doe or Alice. We will get that user if it exists. Otherwise, this will be none, and we'll raise that exception. If the user exists, we get the user, we return the user here, and if the user is an active user, then we will return the user. Otherwise, we're going to be throwing exceptions up, left, and center. Now, this is still not going to work because we still don't have a token, right? We still need to actually figure out a way to get the token itself. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's make a route. And the reason, and I'll show you in just a second. So now let's do app.post token async def login. Form data will be OAuth2 password request form. And we'll just say user dict equals fake users db.get form data.username. And we're going to have to import this as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now first things first, the reason this is called token is because when we instantiated the OAuth 2 scheme, token URL was token. That's literally the only reason why it's called token. Okay? Now, what's going to be happening is we're going to have some sort of login functionality. There's going to be some sort of form. You'll notice it looks kind of like this. This is the form that's going to be passed in. You see token URL is token. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to be passing in a username and a password. From that, we're going to get a user dict from the fake users DB. If you actually had a database, you would have a different flow for this. So let's go ahead. Let's say if not user dict, raise HTTP exception, status code equals 400, detail equals incorrect username or password. And we do it like this because you don't want to actually tell the users whether it's a username or it's a password, because if they see that it's a valid username, then they can just keep hitting that with different passwords, and vice versa. So you don't necessarily want to do that. So now, invalid username or password. Next, user equals user in DB, user dict. So we're just going to instantiate a user in DB option or object from our user information that we're getting up here. So we're going to, let's say we pass in John Doe as the username. Well, then we're going to get this actual user here. And we're going to get all 5 fields. We're going to get username, full name, email, hashed password, and disabled. Okay, so now let's go down here. Hashed password equals fake password hash form data dot password. So what we're doing now is we're taking the password that's being sent in here. We're going to hash it using our fake method that we've created right here. Fake hashed and password. You notice this one is fake hashed secret2. This one is fake hashed secret. So the idea is going to be that we're going to pass in the word secret or secret2. It will create a fake hash and we're good. Now we just need to compare the two. If not hashed password equals user.hashed password, raise HTTP exception, status code equals, you know what, I'm just going to copy this because it's the same thing. Incorrect username or password. We don't want to give any information. Otherwise, we're going to return access token user.username and token type is bearer. Okay, and that's it. Now we have a login method. So now what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to actually get a token from this. So let's go ahead and refresh. So before, it doesn't matter. Here, let me just hide this for a second, or comment it out. Now let's just go back here for 1 second. Let's try to authorize John Doe, and what was the password here again? Fake hashed secret. Fake hashed secret. Authorize. Not found. What is not found is not necessarily the user or anything like that. The thing that is not found is the token route, because even though it's showing up here, I've hidden it. It's actually gone. Okay, so that's why it's not working. If we uncomment this though, and we refresh, authorize John Doe, fake hashed secret, if I can spell correctly, let's see. Oh, bad request. What happened? What happened, Jeff? What did you do wrong? Did I just not type it correctly? Network. Let's try again. John Doe. Let's paste. Okay, what's the problem here? Incorrect username or password. Oh, duh. Duh. The password is not fake hashed secret. The password is secret. There we go. And we have our token. And if we look, let's see. Application, where is it? No, it's not there. It's not there. Is it a cookie? No. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it's actually stored right now. And I'm not going to bother continuing to look. But we now have a token. It is a bearer token. The access type is, or the access token itself is John Doe. We can close this. And now we try this out. And you see, we get the actual information here. Okay? So that is a very basic setup for password management and user management and things like that. You're not going to be doing something like this when you're building your app. Like you're going to take this and have to go like a lot deeper. But it was important to see how this all goes. And let's just kind of summarize again very quickly. We've done. This should not be called first steps because this is a this is a lot of stuff. So let's just take a look. We've got our fake users database. We've got a password hasher that we use to check the password that's being passed in. We have our user model and our user in DB model. And what you are typically going to want to set this up because if you're going to be returning user information, you don't want to return the hashed password, but you're going to want to be able to check it, the hash password against the password passed in. So let's go with the flow here of our users me. So we're going to fetch our current active user. Well, our current active user comes from get current user, which up here takes the token. Now, in the request that we just made, our token was John Doe. So we call fake decode token, which calls get user. So we're passing in our database, that is our user's database from above. And now we're passing in the username is John Doe because that's what's actually stored as the token. We fetch the user from the database using the username, and then we return the full user in DB with the hashed password. If we just did user, then we would not get a hashed password that we can check against. Okay. Now, we come back, we get our user, we get our user. Now we have a user. Okay? We have a user that's returned, and we have a user that's returned, and that's the information that shows up right here. Now, the authentication. What we do when we click up here, let's log out. We now have our login set up. So by simply adding this dependency on OAuth 2 scheme, which we actually have right here in get current user, it gives us this button. The flow for this is we pass in a username and password. It gets passed to the token route. If we were to just do, like if we did this right here, try it out. John Doe secret. You can see we actually got our token. So it's the exact same thing that's happening. It's just it's happening up here. Reset. It's happening in here, and it's actually storing the token in the session somewhere. I don't know exactly where. So we're going to log in username and password. It will hit this token endpoint. First, it tries to get the user dict from the user's database using the username parameter here. Okay? Because that was our key. The username was the key for our dictionary. Okay? So we're going to get that user object. If it doesn't exist, then we're going to raise an exception. If we were to type in Bob and ASDF, authorize, we get a bad request, which actually turns out to be invalid or incorrect username or password. Now we're going to create the user in DB object. We're going to create a hashed password from the form data's password. And then we're just going to check to see if the hashed password that we have equals the user's hashed password. If it doesn't, again, incorrect username or password. Otherwise, we return the token to this form that is then stored in the front end. Okay, and this flow will work for if you're, if you're building a separate front end app in Vue or Svelte or God forbid even in React, it will all work this in the same way. Okay. This was a lot. This is a long video. I apologize. I wasn't intending on it being this long, but I really wanted to get through it. In the next video, we're going to add in one extra little thing. Instead of just passing the username as the token, which is extraordinarily insecure, we're going to be working with a JSON web token or a JOT. I don't know why it's called a JOT. It's JWT. I don't know why it's called a JOT. I don't like it. I almost always refuse to say it, but that's what people call it. Okay, I think that's enough for today. Have a good day, everyone.